Salutations, ladies and gentlemen, the Knife Raven here, back again with another video, and in today's video, I think it's about time that I discuss some Victorinox knives. Now, Victorinox is a very, very famous brand. The inventors of the original Swiss Army knife, and they've been around for well over 100 years, and I would argue they are the most popular knives in the world. And that is a bold claim to make, but I think that many others will agree with me. Now, the interesting thing about me and Victorinox is I've actually reviewed many of them before. Where, you may ask? Well, on my old channel, and back before the great YouTube purge of 2022, as I like to call it, where I had to get rid of the majority of my old videos because apparently YouTube had a problem with them. Now, I have more knowledge, I have more experience with these knives, and I think my reviews will be a bit more critical in some aspects, but also more knowledgeable and complimentary in others. So without further ado, this is one of my favorite Victorinox knives, and it's quite unique as it is not a multi-tool. The majority of the Swiss Army knives fall into the multi-tool category, but this one does not. And it truly is, through and through, a fine example of a Swiss-made penknife. And it is Victorinox Excelsior. Now, the Excelsior is a very, very interesting knife, and it's really unlike a lot of other Victorinox knives. And it was originally, I believe, called the Victorinox Secretary. And after the Secretary, there was another model, which was, I believe, the exact same knife, but with a different name, and it was called the Pocket Pal. And then from the Pocket Pal, you take the same model and give it a new name again and a new handle material, and you have the Excelsior. This right here is the Victorinox Excelsior, and it's in the smooth silver Alox handle. Now, Alox is quite interesting. It's Victorinox's take on a textured metal handle, and you may notice no texturing. And this is quite unusual, as most of the Alox knives feature a rough, coarse, easy to hold kind of grip on the handles. This is very, very smooth. It's a glassy, smooth texture. Very nice to the touch. And again, this makes for a very slim and slender profile, and really just elevates this into a realm of its own. And I would truly say this is one of the nicest Victorinox knives, and would definitely be fitting of the gents knife category. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the construction. You have brass pins holding the knife together, I believe. Either that or nickel silver. I'm going with brass. And these are, again, quite unusual on most Victorinox knives. No liners, just a stainless steel spring, making for an extremely thin profile. You have one spring, which houses two blades. Speaking of which, very, very well assembled. You can see this one is pretty much perfectly centered here. And this one, well, it's a little hard to tell the centering, but you can see these were both fitted so that they'd fit within the same handle frame. Now, the blades here are also sunken. The joints are fully sunken, which means that it will be very, very smooth to take it out of the pocket, and it won't catch on anything. Same thing here. Blade opens with a nail nick. I'd give it about a 5 on the pull. And you have a very nice mirror polished spear point blade. Just wipe any fingerprints off here. There we are. You can see very nice reflective mirror polish. And you have a very nice hollow grind on the blade with a very generous sharpening choil. Again, the exact steel grade on these I am still a little unaware of. I've heard them compared to 12C27 Sandvik, although do not quote me on that. Again, the steel will hold up well enough for your everyday cutting tasks, but for those who are looking for your typical super steel kind of knife, you're probably not going to be finding that in this. But bear in mind, this is a 24 pound, or pardon me, 22 to 24 Canadian dollars knife, and that is significantly cheaper than really anything that will be featuring a super steel. No half stops here, but there's a nice clear stamp on the tang. If the camera will focus. Victorinox Switzerland stainless rostfrei. Rostfrei, of course, means rust-free. There you are. No marking on this side. Taking a look at the pen blade. Again, you have another nice polished spear point. Very, very small blade. This would be technically an equal end penknife, as both sides are symmetrical to one another, with the exclusion of the little key ring. The blade length on both of these, let me check. So for the main blade, this is coming in at 2 1/4 inches, about, just a little over. And for cutting edge, you're looking at just around 2 inches. So modest cutting edge, but certainly nothing over the top. Definitely UK legal. Let's look at the second blade. This one is just around 1 1/4, and the cutting edge is just a tiny bit over 1. So very, very, very small pen blade here. Perhaps this would be like an apple peeler, even then it might be a little small. I'd probably give the action on this one about maybe about a 4. This one would be a 5 or a 6. Again, the key ring kind of moves around a little. You can remove these. I've seen people who have removed them. I wouldn't personally recommend it, but you absolutely can. But yeah, very, very slim profile. The knife itself is, as you can see, very small. 3 1/4 inches for the handle, and an overall length of just around, just a little under 5 3/4 inches. So this is a very small knife. It's definitely not pathetic, and you could certainly get a fair bit of cutting out of this very, very sharp and very easy to sharpen blade here. But would I say this is a large knife or a hard use EDC? Absolutely not. No. This is a small, slim, elegant carry through and through, and that's probably what it was originally designed for. It's a pen knife, so it's certainly not a beater, but it's not a safe queen. It's cheap enough that you could buy one of these, take it with you, use it quite frequently, sharpen it, polish it, oil it, and you wouldn't have to worry about scratching it or anything. But at the same time, would this be your ideal desert island carry? No, of course not. The only comparison I can bring forth as of now would be with the Moki Shimafukuro, which is another knife I am carrying right now. And you can see that the Moki is a little bit bigger. This is a lockback knife. And you can see the blade on the Moki is significantly larger overall, even though the handles aren't too far away. But just to give you an idea, this is a small knife already, but this is a very small knife. You're barely getting 4 fingers on it. And even then, this is with my medium-sized hands, and I'm just barely pulling it off. This knife, at least the one I bought, included this little, I believe, faux leather slip, or at very least the interior isn't leather. And again, very, very slim and makes for an easy carry. You could put this in a pocket, suit pocket, jacket pocket, and you would have no issues carrying it. You probably wouldn't even notice the fact that it's there until you need to take it out, and then you could probably get away with a decent amount of cutting. So there you have it, the Victorinox Excelsior. What are my thoughts on this knife? Well, it's a very, very niche Victorinox, and one could argue many Victorinox knives are like that. But this one is probably more appealing to the average slip joint collector than the average Victorinox collector. Now, there will be those who just like this knife because of its history, or because of the fact that it's a unique knife made by a company who primarily does multi-tools. But I could see this being a very separate style of knife that Victorinox really should lean more into. There are no tweezers or toothpick on this, and because of that, I could certainly see them replacing these handles with maybe walnut wood scales, and that would make for a very, very nice, traditional, Swiss-made penknife. And I think that while they certainly aren't as popular as they probably once were, pen and pocket knives are making a comeback with brands like Case, GEC, Boker, Ottermesser, and I certainly think that the market for such things would be expanding. So, seeing that this is still a very, very sought-after Victorinox knife that collectors would definitely want to get a hold of, I don't really understand why this knife is, well, limited to just 2 handle materials. I believe currently it's the silver Alox and the Celador red. So if Victorinox expanded on their catalog for this knife, I think it would definitely get a bit more notice. And again, I found this at warriorsandwondersbladescanada.com. I have no affiliation with them. I just personally like them and will recommend them. And I don't know if this knife is out of stock, but when I got it, it was under $25 Canadian, I believe either 22 or 24, which is very reasonable for a pocket knife of any kind. Definitely within the Rough Rider price range, maybe a bit cheaper than the average Arthur Wright, and definitely cheaper than your larger Victorinox knives with multiple attachments and extra little tools. So if you're looking for a classy, very slim, unintrusive, small kind of knife, and perhaps you like Victorinox, you like their steel, you like their company, I would definitely suggest checking this knife out if you can find it. And again, I would recommend this to any slip joint collector too. And as someone who really appreciates equal end pen knives of such a style, I think that this would be a great find for almost anyone. So there you have it. There is the Victorinox Excelsior in smooth silver Alox. And this is the Knife Raven, as always, signing off. Goodbye.